Well, hello everybody. The Canadian season has come to an end here as the Canadians lose 6-1 in Game 5 of this Eastern Conference Finals here. And it was more of the same. It was more of the same stuff, and it would be really easy to be really mad and frustrated over the decision making and all of those things in here. Like just the fact that we came out and played the exact same game that we had played in the previous game, and the game before that, the game before that. Like, it just didn't really feel like we made any changes, and Martin St. Louis notably did not make any lineup changes at all coming into this game, which I think is kind of a disappointing thing, to say the least, just because you would like to maybe shake things up a little bit. If I were a coach, that's what I would do. I'd put Brendan Gallagher in there, maybe just shake up the lines a little bit. Where we went with the exact same makeup as we did in Game 3 and Game 4. And I think that's kind of just an error, in my opinion. I mean, it's hard to really say. I mean, I'm not an NHL coach myself. I don't know the inner workings of how the team looks and how our extras are. Like, maybe there's some injury considerations to take into effect that we don't really know about yet, and that definitely could play a role. But if it were me, I would have put Brendan Gallagher in, if for no other reason than because it might end up being his last ever game in a Montreal Canadiens sweater, because we have no idea what's going on as we move forward here. Obviously, he's got a year left on his contract, that will take place the following season, but even still, I mean, like, it's a veteran guy like that who hasn't really been playing much. He's been scratched for the back kind of half of this season here, so it's really hard to say definitively whether or not he will be in the lineup moving forward. That can be said for a lot of different players as well. I think, it'll be a very interesting summer, to say the least, in terms of roster movement, and we'll have to see, who ends up where, and what's going to end up happening in terms of trades, draft, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what the lineup looks like come September. But for the time being, it's a disappointing one. It's another one where it's just the Canes just really showed that they were a team that was not to be messed with. The Canadians just didn't really have much left in the tank for this one. They played a very similar game. I honestly thought that this game was one of their better games in the round. Obviously, Game 1 was their best game, but this one might be a close second. Maybe like the Game 3 where we went to overtime. That's another close one, but at the same time, it just the Canes just showed that they were a very, very solid team at both ends of the ice, and it'll be a very interesting and entertaining conference. Stanley Cup final there between two teams that I could really give a shit about is really what it ends up being. For obvious reasons, I hope that the Canes do end up winning in the Stanley Cup final, because let's be honest, Vegas does not have a lot going for them in terms of morality or reason to cheer for them. So if you know, you know. But yeah, so that's just, it's disappointing. It's a disappointing end of the season. It's unfortunate that in a season where the Canadians end up going to the Eastern Conference Finals, we feel the way that we do now. It would have been, like, in some ways it would have even felt better to have lost to the Buffalo Sabres in 7 games. And obviously, I don't regret winning that series, and it's really awesome for our group to be in the position that we're in. And I really think that a lot of what happened in this series is an amazing learning opportunity for this team, both the players and the coaching staff, to kind of take from this and learn going into next season, because hopefully we want to build a roster, build ourselves back up a little bit, so that next year, come May, June, we're back in this position and we can be a little bit better because of the experience that we gained the previous season. And that's kind of exactly what the Canes have done as well. I think the Canes have gotten to the conference finals numerous times over the past few years, and really struggled to get past that barrier. And finally, I think that all of that experience that they gained from playing the Florida Panthers a number of times and other teams in the conference finals going back the past few years with their current core They kind of learned from that experience and used it very well in the series against us here. So hopefully, we can kind of do the same, maybe a little bit more successful than the Canes were over the past few years in terms of winning games and all that kind of stuff. We're already better than them previously because we won a game. They would get swept normally. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of what I look at it as. Is it's just a big, learning experience. The whole thing is a learning experience through the ups and downs, obviously. And Martin St. Louis, I'm sure, will say something to that effect in his post-game press conferences, which are probably going on as I'm talking. But yeah, I think it's, regardless of that, it's hard to not be disappointed. And the lack of anything that we were able to get done in this series here, only positive coming out of this game. Obviously, Cole Caulfield scoring his 6th of the postseason of the power play, and fitting that Lane Hudson is the one who sets him up to get his 13th assist of the postseason there. So great, obviously, it doesn't really matter. It was in garbage time at that point anyway, so there's not really a whole lot of excitement that comes from that. But at the same time, you can be pretty impressed with the efforts from some of our guys here. Lane Hudson finishes the postseason with 16 points, which is ridiculous. He's been phenomenal. Nick Suzuki, for a guy who played a lot of hockey this year, also 16 points in the postseason. Cole Caulfield gets 13, Slavkovsky 12, and Newhook had a hell of a postseason as well. Got 7 goals, 10 points here. You can go all the way down the lineup. I think that a lot of guys in this postseason really played some of their best hockey. Caden Gooley is another guy I can think of. Phil Deneau is a huge add and played really well. Obviously, it doesn't really matter anymore, but I think at the end of the day, we can look back and be really proud of the effort that we put through for all of these games, these 19 games that we played in the postseason. We put a hell of a run into against we were supposed to lose in 6 or whatever against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, they were supposed to beat us and win the Stanley Cup that year. We took them down in 7 games. We withstood the pressure there, the physicality that they brought, all that kind of stuff. We did what we needed to do. Buffalo was a high flying team that gave us a lot of fight there, and we were able to to establish our play. And Carolina was just the better of all of those teams, us included, and found a way to get get their game established, and we could just never really get that back. But again, I think we can be really proud of the effort we put in. I think that there's obviously things that we can look back on, especially in this series, and be disappointed by and be frustrated by, like the coaching decisions and just the fact that the players as a whole just weren't really engaged at that point, incredibly fatigued. Just let the fatigue get to them and sway this thing. But at the same time, we can be really proud of it. We can learn from it, which is the biggest thing. If you don't learn from the playoffs, you don't learn from all of these games, then we're never going to get any better. So obviously that's something that both the coaching staff and the players can learn from and build back on. So I think we can all be very happy with the way that everything went down at the end of the day. So yeah, that's the season. It's crazy. I mean, obviously nobody really expected much. There's definitely times throughout the season where we weren't even sure if we were going to make the playoffs at all. There were definitely times where the Canadians were on the brink of being on the outside looking in, and considering how tight this playoff race was down to the last few days. I think the Canadians really established themselves as a contending team in those last few weeks of the regular season there, and really put themselves on the map. And I think that going forward in the next year, the Canadians are going to have a target on their back a little bit, just because of what they were able to do in the regular season, as well as how successful they were in the postseason leading up to the conference finals here. And again, there are a lot of teams who would die to to be in our position, right, to be in a conference final, right? There's so many teams who just haven't been there. I think about, obviously, the Toronto Maple Leafs haven't been there and God knows how long. I think literally ever, technically, because of the way that the playoffs are structured or whatever. They've never even won a conference final in their history. Detroit hasn't been there in a number of years. Like, there are tons of teams who would be dying to be in this position, and I think that we have to be aware of the fact that we're going to have a target on our back moving forward. We can also be thankful that we were in this position, that we have to learn from the fact that we're in this position in the first place, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be very interesting to see what goes on next season. It'll be Demidov's sophomore season, to see if he kind of booms or busts a little bit. Sometimes in a second year, guys kind of die down a little bit, but Lane Hudson didn't really seem to happen for him. He only got better, so hopefully Demidov will kind of follow in those footsteps. It'll be a lot of guys, like some of our core guys are transitioning from young players to more of experienced players in this league. Like we're like Cole Caulfield's like going on 25, 26 here. Safkovsky's getting a little bit older. Suzuki is getting a little bit more of a veteran player as time goes on here. So we're really, in a lot of ways entering our window of contention. Obviously, like you can only say so much about, a window of contention, and, every chance you get in the postseason that you don't win is a chance wasted, and that is not lost on me at all. But, as we move forward here, like these next few years are really going to be years where the Canadians are going to be, contending, and they have to continue to, to push in terms of actually being in the games, as well as Kent Hughes being in a position to put us in a winning spot, right? Like there's a lot of if you go back to the trade deadline from this season, it was kind of a disappointment that that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon didn't find a way to make a trade to kind of bolster this lineup. But I think you look at this current playoff round, and we really maybe could have benefited from having maybe some more veteran guys on this roster, like maybe in the defensive category, offense, whatever. I think that might have been helpful, just to have somebody who's been through that a little bit more than the guys that are currently on our roster. But this summer is going to be a big opportunity for Kent Hughes to do what he does best, making good trades. He's definitely been on the plus side of a lot of his deals that he's made since 2022 when he got here. I think this summer in a lot of ways is going to be huge for the Montreal Canadiens, as they are really gearing up now. It's not like we're not in a rebuild anymore. Obviously, you can look at it a number of ways, but we were just in the conference finals, right? We got to find a way to make our team better for right now. Obviously, we want to continue to build young. I think that's what Ken Hughes is probably going to be looking at. But at the same time, if we find a veteran presence that we can add into our room to make ourselves a little bit better, kind of like what we did with acquiring Philippe Deneau, like somebody who can kind of like bolster our lineup, make ourselves a little bit more of a well-rounded unit. I think that's something that we might be able to see coming this summer. Maybe we even dish out some draft picks in exchange for a more veteran presence, somebody a little bit more established in the league that can help us out in right now, right as we go into this season. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of trades are made, what goes on, at the draft that's coming up in around a month. So it'll be a great summer. Obviously, I'll be on this channel, breaking down all of that kind of stuff as the draft gets closer, as trades come out or whatever. We'll be breaking down all that kind of stuff. But obviously, we'll leave a little bit of space to kind of digest the season, the over like 100 games or something like that the Canadians played this entire year. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for this one. It's a tough way to end the regular season, but I'm personally proud of the season that we had. I think that the players should be proud of the effort that they put in to go from a team that maybe wasn't even supposed to make the playoffs at all to go into the conference finals. I think it's a tremendous accomplishment, and I think that they should be hungry, they should be pissed, all of that kind of stuff, and they should be ready to go in September, because this is just the start for the Montreal Canadiens. I can feel it. This team is great. They have a lot of stuff going for them. Obviously, they need a little bit of help, and Kent Hughes is more than capable of giving them that help this summer. But come September, I think we're going to see, a more well-rounded team. Obviously, there's going to continue to be ups and downs as we go, but, I think the Canadians coming into the 26-27 season will be a team to watch out for, a team that can really make waves, and, especially if we continue to get goaltending like we have gotten from Jakub Dobeš. It's he was incredible the entire playoffs long. It's like something that I would have never predicted when, the season started, that he would even be, in that conversation for a guy who he just was lights out every single game. He was absolutely the number one star of every game in this particular postseason. So yeah, it was if we get goaltending like that, we continue to make that work. We get Fowler a little bit, dipped into the league a little bit more, and plus all of these other additions and stuff like that might be coming. Guys getting a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, all that kind of stuff. I think the Canadians have a bright future, which I'm sure we all know as Canadians fans. But I think this coming season is going to be a good one. I'm very much looking forward to it, as much as it does sting to be eliminated from the playoffs today. But I think, the good times are coming. I think the Canadians are going to be in a good spot moving forward here. So I'm excited for that. Obviously, videos will come over the summer here as we continue through the rest of the playoffs into the Stanley Cup final. I'm going to continue to make the YouTube shorts and Instagram stuff. If you're checking me out on Instagram, I'll be doing those prediction videos for the rest of the Stanley Cup finals. Hopefully the Canes find a way to get a win, so we can at least say that we lost to the winner there. But as we go through the summer, I'll probably make some more videos about kind of roster predictions and trades or whatever, the draft, all that kind of stuff as that comes up. So that's all stuff that you can look forward to. But as of now, this is it for the 25-26 season and it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching all of these videos. Obviously, this is just me, here kind of rambling on to my laptop after every game for the season. I've had a lot of fun just kind of breaking things down, even if nobody's listening. If anybody is, watching these videos, I absolutely appreciate you taking the time to listen to these things, and I will absolutely be back for this upcoming season in September to break down games as they come. I'm very much looking forward to that. So again, thank you guys so much for watching these videos, and I will catch you in the summer when news comes out and all that kind of stuff. But then in the upcoming preseason, regular season, all that jazz next season. So again, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. I will talk to you guys in the summer.